How are you doing? It's my bud.
What?
It's my bud from Cabo.
Nice, cool.
Yeah.
Kenny, Kenny, do we have a reader yet? Larry Cuthill's here. I'll ask him to come up and just read it with a handheld mic. Hey, Larry, would you like to read tonight? Get with Kenny. And thank you.
You ready?
No, because I don't want him to have to sit up there. Just have him come up for Matthew 1.
I think we're on.
Yeah, that too.
You ready?
Yeah. feels good. That feels so good. That feeling, some of these faces. We come in and we go out alone. Tonight we're going to talk about the fear of being alone and the good news that in between it's you and me. Welcome to Collective. I'm super glad you're here. We're super glad you're here. I'm Ben. I'll be your host for the service tonight here in beautiful, increasingly chilly downtown DeLand. Welcome to our living room from anywhere in the world at wearecollectivechurch.com. You can subscribe and stay connected. Some of us have done this hundreds of times. Some of it's been hundreds of times since we've been here to do this together. Some of us, it's maybe not only your first time with us, but your first time in anything religious or church-like in a while. Thank you for trusting us. That keeps us fresh and alive. I'm grateful for the people that came out last week for Fireside Moonrise at my house. It was super cool. We packed out my house. It was really good to be together. And I got frustrating news this week about how COVID is kind of continuing to impact plans to remember my grandmother who passed, not of COVID, but during the pandemic. There continues to be like family stuff that makes that tough, and so we're not going to get to celebrate my grandmother the way that we had hoped. And I was starting to feel bummed about that, and then this was like Monday, and then I was like, oh my God, my house was full Sunday night of people that love me, in the way that my grandmother lives through me, and like it was just a really neat moment to, like we're going to talk about tonight, to not feel alone in that, but to feel surrounded by you guys. So my heart was full. I want to begin, as we have been, by bearing witness to the courage it takes to gather, and to honor that with belonging. So whether it's a long time or your first time, you belong. Those around you add value, and while we are together in this place, doing this work, everybody's equal. Your presence makes us who we are, so I want to say welcome. But this June was here last week. If you missed it, she sang with us, and it was like the thing. So I won't tell you to go back and listen to last week's sermon unless you're a real glutton for punishment. But if you want to look at the video of June singing, super worth it. But while she was back there trying to sell merch, because I made the mistake of saying, if you work the merch table, I'll pay you. So like anytime she's around, she's like, let me go hang out back there. But while she was doing that, she doodled, welcome to Collective Church. So welcome. Really glad that you guys are here. Your presence makes us who we are. We're not here to be religiously entertained, but to do good work. That is spiritual formation. And the goal is to make a good life as good people. Here to help us do that work tonight, Kenny is helping host and connect. Brandon is running the booth and slaying the bass. Mary's running the booth and the slides a bit. Freddie, our artist in residence, still residing, still making art. And we have Larry, who is going to do a reading for us tonight. Both, I think, the community statement and Matthew, right? And we also, I want to give a shout out to Matt Garrett, who's been tirelessly trying to make coffee since he got here. I don't know how long ago. He's overcome legitimate obstacles. I don't know whether he's overcome them successfully. I don't know if there's coffee. It looks like maybe there is, but anyway, thanks, Matt, for the hustle. We all are Collective Church. Larry, would you come and read for us what that means? Oh yeah, you can just stand and do it there. That's fine. Yeah. He won't be on camera, but you guys online you'll know why we asked him. Perfection. Please, go for it, Larry.
We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community, and we've traveled different paths. So we agreed not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Thank you, Larry. That gets a hand. Yeah. So that's the community statement. If that's new to you, we read that every week. That's how we agree to be together when we're together. We've also started singing it. This is by our own Andrew Brooks. It's called Love Without Why.
Travel different paths, beautiful people with messy pasts, so have no fear, no judgment here. Whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in anything, something you can teach us. You belong, no right, no wrong. Leaning into grace, help us make a place with an open table where no one's turned away. We'll love without why, no one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals, where you are held in light. Good news is on your side. Whoa. Whoa. Life is full of mystery. Solidarity helps us to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Leaning into grace, help us make a place with an open table where no one's turned away. We'll love without why, no one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals, where you are held in light. Good news is on your side. Whoa. Whoa.
We are Collective Church. We, us in the room, and the folks that are joining us online. Kenny, who's with us tonight?
Well, we've got Dottie watching,
Dottie, love you. Thanks for the messages this week. Back at you.
and Melanie representing the Wilsons.
Heck yeah. Hey, Melanie, great to see you. Scott, Caroline, Ethan, Annabelle, love to you.
There was a lot to be said about Larry reading the community statement. I jokingly said, cue the voice of God.
Yeah.
Dottie was, you beat me to it. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And when I said that Larry should be recording audiobooks, Melanie agreed.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Yeah, actually, I kind of want to publish something this year just so we can have Larry read it. Like, it doesn't need to be good at all, but we'll do an audiobook version that Larry reads. Awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining us online. That's who's online, but we're going to talk for a second about who's in the room and, more importantly, who is on the path with us. We've been saying recently it's hard to build a movement if you don't know who's in it. So we're going to actually talk to each other. That's something that we've done really well here for a really long time. So if you're willing to share, and it's okay if you're not, you can reflect on your own. But if you're willing to talk to somebody next to you, we're going to give you 3 minutes on the clock. Kenny is going to chat with you guys who are online. And we want you to chat about these two questions. Where was it lonely this week? And where was the depth of presence? Where was it lonely this week? And where was the depth of presence? You can take that any way you want. It can be in personal relationships, can be your work life, it can be any kind of loneliness, any kind of presence. How does that hit you? You'll know. Don't overthink it. Where was the loneliness this week? Where was the depth of presence? Take about 3 minutes, chat with each other. If you don't know each other, introduce yourselves. the idea is that we want to model healthy conversations. So take about 3 minutes, share with one another, and then we'll come back and continue. Go ahead. You're already doing it. Great.
How have you been doing?
Real well.
Oh, good.
Very well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, really well.
Figured.
Yeah, no, it's very, very well.
Seems like you had a good weekend.
Yeah, it's been super good. Really,
Bonfires.
yeah, very good. Really good events. Great time with us. Good. All right, anybody want to give us a quick answer or two? Anyone? Quick share. Where was it lonely this week? Well, at my house it was lonely because the kids went back for Thanksgiving. So that definitely going from like that huge energy to not having that energy. Yeah. How many of you guys, and you don't have to get specific, how many of you there was something that was an experience of loneliness and something that was an experience of depth of presence, both related to Thanksgiving? Within the last week, that you got both. Yeah, that it's not one or the other. Okay, cool. So we're integrated beings. That's healthy. We get both. There's not a spirituality that says one's good and one's bad. It's all part of it. So we've said it, we've sung it, we've connected in the room and online. Kenny, say that somebody decided, you know what? Screw it. This is probably not a cult. There's a very small chance that I'll get abducted and there'll be a podcast about me. I'm going to risk my life and go to a smaller religious gathering. Say somebody's taken all those risks. How would they then get connected to what else we have going on if they dare?
Well, risk takers, it starts with an email. Subscribe and select your the rundown as well as your preferences within the rundown. You can hit that from our website. And then the weekly rundown becomes your custom dashboard for practicing together.
Awesome. So for example, we talked last week about teams and needs. I'm just going to say it this week. It was Thanksgiving, and I chose to give thanks instead of work a bunch. And so next week, Kenny and I will have a thorough accounting for all the people who have done surveys and all the folks who have come to me and Kenny separately and said, dude, this is collective. We don't do surveys. But like, if you want me to help, I'll help. So just text me and I'll be there. So all those people and all the people that did the surveys, and here's the good thing, it's both of you guys. That's our community. It's okay. So we're going to tabulate and spreadsheet, and we'll come back next week. Next week, there will be someone at the door doing greeting. I bet it'll be Dan. There will be baristas here at the bar. There will be some of these other great volunteer things we've been trying to build towards. We'll have them for Advent week 2. But that's because it's Thanksgiving, and we wanted to be with the people who mattered. So, Kenny, give us a quick rundown of what's coming up in the Christmas event list.
So yeah, in this Advent and Christmas season, we've got a ton of things coming up. The first of these is our Death Cafe on the 8th of December. I think we'll be having it upstairs.
That's right, yeah, in kind of the very end of the counseling center, the room we call the chapel. It's the one with natural light, so feel free to join us there.
Yeah, and that'll be followed the next day by Candles and Carols, which will be here. We're not doing it somewhere else because usually when we try to do it somewhere else, we get rained out. So
yeah, so be here because the weather will be perfect.
Yes.
And we'll be inside. Yeah.
And then the following week, we'll be doing a special Christmas Pints and Parables, also here in the building instead of somewhere else.
Yes.
Ben will be revisiting a bunch of cool St. Nicholas stories, which will be very exciting. This is him pulling
Maybe slightly critiquing the capitalist Santa Claus mythos. We don't know. We'll see what happens when you get here. We'll see.
And then, of course, we're going to be here on the 24th for Christmas Eve. That'll be great. All of this information will be going out in the rundown for the remainder of the year. And of course, we have all these events on Facebook if you want to RSVP.
Awesome. This is kind of the last opportunity you guys have to get tickets for the symphony that's coming up this Friday and Saturday, the 3rd and 4th at 7:30 p.m. You're probably like, hold on, who's that dude in the picture? I know him. That's Brandon. He's the conductor of the symphony. Yeah, he's back running the booth right now. They've got Santa Dan Hensley, who I hear is going to be, and we thought nobody put Santa Dan in a corner, but they're going to put him in this corner with a Christmas tree, and people can see Santa Dan. And there's going to be hot chocolate, but you do need tickets. I'm going to be there Friday night. So if the symphony's not enough, come see me. And then you guys can, hey now, come out and see either one. Oh my, I did see that. Wendy is in it. Yes, a hand for Wendy. Jumping back in. That's all I got. Yeah, Oh yeah, perfect. So we'll say this again at the end. On Tuesday morning, if you sign, and I don't know this yet, I'm just gonna confess because I didn't look at it. If you signed up to be a person who wants to help anytime and you are willing to do manual labor, Tuesday we're gonna do about an hour run through of disassembling the stage because we have to get this out for the symphony. So if you wanna have that in your pocket as a tool for the future, if you wanna be able to help volunteer in that way, come learn that Tuesday. After we all learn it together, eventually the next time we tear it down, we're gonna make a video so that we can send you the video and you'll know how to do it. But if you wanna be a part of that process, that's gonna be Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Fantastic. I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
Cool.
So remember, the point is the practice. Showing up, giving, and serving are core ways that we practice together, from everything in the rundown to giving financially. It's your time and your life. Make your plan to practice. Like the email, the planning is the practice. And of course, if you need any help, I'm more than happy to help you after the service. Now, let's slow down and shift from words and brains, planning, to breath and silence, being. Both are essential to our practice. It all belongs.
I'm going to give you a little nugget right now, and you can see if you remember it at the benediction. But we're gonna come back to the value of being alone together, and that does something to us, and it does something for us in a way that being alone doesn't. That may sound like a crazy idea. It'll make more sense, I think, this evening. So we're gonna sound the singing bowl in a second, and we're gonna ask you to join us for a few minutes in just gently returning to your attention. So if you want to sit a little more straight in your chair, or if you're in a beanbag, you can just chill. Wherever you are, get in a comfortable posture, hopefully so that you can kind of breathe fully into your diaphragm. We want to return to our attention first, and then to a sense of self-awareness. Sorry about that. To return to the true self, to God. Whether that feels to us like center or emptiness or anywhere in between, sink into that feeling, trust it, feel safe in it. I'm going to light some incense and invite you to breathe. As if your senses are searching for something. I'm going to ask Jim to shut that door, actually. I'm a novice in my meditation practice, so that will distract me. We want to breathe as if our senses are searching for something and we're open to surprise. And so you don't have to open your eyes, but just picture in your mind's eye what your face does when I invite you to breathe as if you're searching for something. You kind of crinkle your nose, you jut your chin out and squint your eyes like you're looking for something. You maybe turn your head and point your ear, your good ear, towards it like you're listening for something. Maybe you lean towards it like your body has an energy that's going to engage it. We're not just talking about smelling. I'm saying open your senses as if they're searching for something, open to surprise. And go in knowing that your mind is going to wander. You can come back to your attention by coming back to your breath. No judgment, just notice gently, gently to your breath. You can use the drone footage as that best helps you to survey your inner landscape. May this silence allow us to contemplate what we want this ceremony to accomplish for us. Humility, spiritual rebirth, strength for what lies ahead. Relax. It's all right. Larry, why don't you lay Matthew 1 on us? And you know what? You're so well dressed. Why don't you come up and join Kenny on the couch and you can read from there and then return to your seat, just so people online can see you. Thank you.
This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. Before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, all right, how about a sermon, shall we? Now may the words of our mouths and the meditation of all of our hearts grant us not only the light of wisdom to understand these words, but the fire of conviction to put them into practice. Amen. When I was in 7th grade, I was in Miss Bramlett's English class. She told us she was older than dirt, and that scared everybody. But it didn't scare me. I really liked her. And one day she was passing back English exams, and I was sitting behind Bridget, with the cutest girl in the class, with her cute little shoes. And the English exams came back, and as it was like in the seat or two ahead of me, I started to get tunnel vision. I didn't know what that was about. But I was having a seizure, and so I woke up and I had wet myself and thrown up on Bridget's shoes right in front of me. So bummer, because 7th grade is not the coolest time for that to happen. And it maybe had to do with an overactive thyroid or adrenal glands, but I couldn't sleep, and I developed insomnia. I was scared about what had happened. And my parents eventually would go to sleep. And this is me in middle school sitting up alone in the middle of the night. And I've realized in the last couple of weeks thinking through this, it was an early and very profound experience of being alone. And my mind naturally went to places like, what will it be like when my parents aren't here? Or like, what if my parents aren't here and I was alone, with no one to, in the other room to turn the light on and scare the loneliness away. I see a lot of you nodding your heads. As we got closer to Christmas that year, I couldn't tell why, but the loneliness felt lonelier as the holidays approached. And the lights didn't help. And we sort of said last week with Death Cafe and what we're going to do in December that it's going to have some of the same vibe as a Blue Christmas, because we know that this time of year for a lot of people is not festive, that it brings on loneliness. It brings on memories that maybe they don't want to have. So the holidays are here. The feast days of Advent are upon us. God is with us. And so, of course, tonight we're going to talk about being alone. We've been singing and thinking about being alone. We've been thinking about being with ourself, about being with our true self, about being with our own breath, about being with that of God in us. And tonight I want to name and address that we all sort of live with this fear fantasy. And I think it flows naturally from what we talked about last week with death. This fear fantasy is that we are alone, that we are entirely without support, or that we are in danger of being alone. in serious danger of being alone, and then we will be without support. We were talking at work with the people last week about how it seems, in general, when we engage a subject like this, it seems like it's easy for some people to feel alone, to feel disconnected from other people, to feel isolated, because it's not about how many friends you have. It's about the depth of those relationships. Here we call that deep belonging. Not how many collective events do you go to, but are there people in this room who know you, who really know you, who are going to call you, who are there for support, that kind of deep belonging. Jim was sharing about this research that was conducted on the spectrum of affinity for aloneness, and I think 1971 it was published. And the results of the study were basically spread all over the place, meaning people's preferences for being alone and how they like to be alone, nobody feels it or experiences it equally, identically, we could say. And, right, everybody's a snowflake. And we can make some generalizations about snow, right? We can make some generalizations about how people feel this. So loneliness seems to attract, for me at least, and you guys can affirm me, attract the coldest kinds of fear, the most debilitating kinds of fear, for me seem to come from or be rooted to loneliness. I think loneliness actually for me is like an element in all my fear. If I'm really afraid of something, at the end of the day, it's not like the thing or that I can't survive the thing. It's probably whether it leaves me alone or pushes people away. The good news is if you can learn to empathize with your own loneliness and your own fear of being alone, you can learn to dance better with that familiar fear in other people. And with, I think, like I'm saying, with all the other fears in your life. So if I can learn to deal with my fear of being alone, maybe that impacts my fear of having done something that I can't fix. Maybe that impacts, like we said last week, that definitely impacts my fear of death, right? If I've come to grips with being alone in a healthy way, that changes my engagement with death. So the blessing, as always, is in the struggle. That's why we call this spiritual formation. And those who have struggled with loneliness, with the fear of being alone, the people who've really experienced it, and not that we all have, right? I'm a straight white male from an upper class, privileged childhood, and I had some insomnia in middle school. So I'm not saying I know what it is like to suffer and to be alone, but I know some of you in this room who do. And so the people who've really come up against with the fear of being alone and with loneliness know something that others don't. That the fear of being alone is not about the aloneness, but it's about the impact of the loneliness. And so it's where our minds go. And this is where my mind went as a middle schooler. What will we do when we're alone? What will we do when we're alone? What will we use to protect ourselves? Who will let us know that everything's okay? Who's going to tell us to get out of the way when everything's not okay? Who will love us? And like we talked about last week, who's going to care for us, right? Am I going to spend the last 20 years of my life with a person that I've never met because they happen to work at the facility that I end up in? I won't, I tell you that much. No, but I've thought through it. I've made decisions about that. Our mind goes to that kind of aloneness. So I just want to start simple. We cannot guarantee, none of us can guarantee that we're always going to be with someone, another person, even another companion, a dog, Odin, or a cat, or whether you've got a fish or whatever. We can't guarantee that our aloneness will be held at bay by another being. By another being that makes us feel with. So flowing from last week on death and tonight's opener, we come into the world alone. We go out of the world alone. And so some spiritualities and traditions invite you, and I want to say probably most of these come out of capitalism more than any religious tradition. Some spiritual traditions want you to couple up with God, right? And so God becomes your new imaginary friend, but for adults, and so you just get God and then you don't ever be alone. And the good news is you don't need a beeper or a cell phone. God's on speed dial. You just got to learn to pray the right way. And as you can imagine, we're in the West. People love convenience, right? So this works really well for a ton of people. Why? Because it's built for capitalism, right? Problem, solution. It's brilliant product. It's brilliant marketing. All you got to do is buy the product. But what about everybody else? Some of us, like me, when I've been in some of the darkest days of my life, God wasn't there. God wasn't there. There's a whole book of the Bible on this called the Book of Lamentations. There are psalm after psalm. God, hello? God, where are you? How long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me? Will you be gone forever? Our tradition preserves this because part of our spirituality is the absence of God. And in those days, it sucked. It sucks. It's awful. And it's a part of the spiritual life that you don't get around. Sorry about that. These are called, in whatever tradition, our tradition is called the dark night of the soul, or we could think of it narratively as an exile. If the way reality works is orientation, disorientation, reorientation, which I think most of you have lived long enough to know that stories work like that, life, death, resurrection, life, death, and then life beyond, whatever you want to call it. But if we need the God companion to keep our aloneness at bay, what happens when even God is absent? What happens when even God is silent? So Larry read this brilliant, the first chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. It's the first Sunday of Advent, and so in a sense, we are celebrating that God is with us. The good news of Emmanuel. Later in that same Gospel, Jesus is being crucified, and they're mocking him, they're gambling for his clothes, they're comparing him to the thieves on either side, and he prays, this is Jesus' prayer, my God, why have you forsaken me? So let's follow the way of Jesus, and we'll never be alone. What? Really? Even of God? Alone. So apparently the way of Jesus is the dark night of the soul. That when we're alone, even alone of God, then we sit side by side with Christ. To be utterly alone, my good friend, my Irish love, the reconstitution of the name drop swear jar. I'll put $1 in the offering thing. Pete Rollins says this is the nihilistic heart of Christianity. When we are so alone, we are derelict even of God, then we sit side by side with our brother, bless you. Then we sit side by side with our brother Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ. You're like, dude, PSA, Xanax before next Sunday's Advent celebration. So what's the point? If we can be so alone, if we can be even alone of God, then who is left to come to us? Who's left to come with us? Who is left to come for us in that aloneness? Back to the mystics. Those who find God in the magic within us. That know that what's alive in us can be manifest in the world. That's the beginning of this gospel, right? We call it incarnation in our tradition, but it's that there's something in you that can become real in the world, that can manifest in the world. So who's left, right? If we're alone even of God, who's left? You come back to the mystics and they say the only one left is you. Befriend the deeper you. You're like, cool, how do I do that? Send me the app, I'll take the quiz. Meditate, sit, pray, be alone. You're like, hold on. We're almost an hour in. How do I overcome the fear of being alone, be alone? Yes, right. It's honestly a pretty easy gig once you get into it. You got to be alone. You got to practice being alone. You got to learn to do it in such a way that it's not about knowing, but about being known. That you can learn to sit in silence long enough that you can sense that you're being known. It's not that you're knowing something, that your senses are accumulating, compiling, and putting in a spreadsheet, but that you can become the recipient of being seen. There's this Gaelic word that can be understood to mean the wisdom of the fathers. And I want to say it's in like the badass indigenous spirituality kind of way, not patriarchy. But like, think of like the good chieftain fathers and the medicine mothers. We would use the word elder. We like that word. So an elder, here's the way to do it. Not the ones that own slaves, but the ones that were slaves. Those elders, right? This Gaelic word, conveys the idea that we are fathered and mothered by more than just our birth parents. Knowing only that, how many of you go, yeah, that's me. I was fathered and mothered by people beyond my birth parents. That's it? No more? No? Okay, cool. Popcorn. My friend Joe has dozens of adoptive parents. which is maybe almost a weak way to put it. She's really adopting them, and so honestly, she's like collecting them now, but it's very cool, and I think a lot of people have this. Jim and I have this relationship. I experienced this first when I was doing youth ministry with a guy named Brian Gillespie who had Parkinson's, and he had been at this church I worked at for 40 years, and he came to me, he's like, what do you need me to do? And I was like, show up to youth group, and he's like, all right. So this guy in his 70s with Parkinson's came and showed up to youth group and was one of the most influential people in my life. Dottie, Doris, Margie Duncan, Laura, Jay, my step-grandpa Ray, David Malinowski, Jim. Dan has raised me. I don't know what the relationship is, but Dan's definitely helped to raise me. I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to have been mothered and fathered so well by so many people, including my birth parents. I had great parents. And I said last week, I was mothered and fathered probably second most profoundly to my birth parents by Bill and Renee McCullough, who the McCullough Room is named after. And in a way, they formed me. They're kind of the elders of this church, in a sense. They're the spiritual parents of us all. They taught me to see the world in such a way that I became formed like this. And I'm saying all this to say, sure, like I said, I know you guys well enough to know this is true for many of us. There may be awful shadows among our ancestors, but we also know that there are such valuable voices. There will be saints in our lineage also. There's this badass revolutionary woman who writes a letter to the Hebrews. And she says, we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Let's throw off the habits that hinder and the sin that so easily entangles. And that's a whole other sermon. I just want to ask this question. What if what she's talking about is the fear of being alone? What if that's the habit that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles is the fear of being alone? Listen to it. We're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Let us leave behind all the habits that hinder and the sin that so easily entangles. What if she's saying when we settle for being afraid of being alone, it's holding you back. It's slowing you down. It's keeping you small. It's leading you wrong. Throw it off. Why? Why can you throw it off? And why does she say it so matter-of-factly? Like, how come you can throw that fear of being alone off? She says, surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Like, what's she like? She lives like she's got a cloud of witnesses. Well, what are they about? It's like they're about a life that everyone they've ever known would be proud of. Well, what's he like? It's like he knows who he is because he's totally made peace with where he comes from. He's integrated with that cloud. See, people who live and love fearlessly have the confidence of someone who comes from a people, someone who comes with a people, someone who comes not only as themselves, but as the energy of the people that they've come from. And it's like this woman who's writing to Hebrews is saying, if you'll quit your toxic, isolating stories, you can live into the community of which you're already a part. You already belong. You're already never alone because of this cloud of witnesses. That's the ancestors. That's the tradition. That's the wisdom. And the medicine. We say this every week in our community statement. That's true intergenerational community. When the wisdom of the elders starts to cycle through in the community. Me and Freddie and Jim, I didn't ask them for permission, and I won't share any more than this, but we had an opportunity for a few hours last week to share our pathologies and our histories and our loved lives, and like, it was it. It was the real stuff. We can choose to nurture ourselves, but by learning and leaning on the wisdom of the fathers and mothers who have formed us. So the Gaelic term that means to convey this truth is ealath. Ealath, the wisdom of the fathers, or I like to call it the medicine of our elders. So we're going to talk for a few minutes. I'm going to give you about 5 more minutes, and I just want to ask this question. Who has formed you, or whatever word you want to use? Who's formed you? Who's eldered you? And this is for you. You can share it with the people there, but part of what I want to give you as the practice for when you're afraid of being alone is who's formed you, who's eldered you, who's invested in you in this way. And then I want to ask you to consider this. How are they always with you? So who has formed you and how are they always with you? Take about 5 minutes. House rules apply. No me monsters. The point is for everybody to get to share, not for you to have a soapbox. So take about 5, and then we will come back. We can share a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up and come to the table. Go.
That's the volunteer thing.
I can do it. I'll walk around the mic.
Maybe have one, and if he mentions having somebody share, you can run a mic up.
So embrace me. Theoretically, my parents, but I am not giving them credit for the person I am. So probably people that I met in 2003 going forward. MTV. Honestly, maybe VH1.
Yeah,
Just sad.
I was gonna say VH1 probably.
I was raised
All right, so who formed you and how are they always with you? Let's start online. Kenny, anybody engaging over there?
Dottie says, their words still come through me to others. Every wise thing I impart to you came from some other person who spoke them and rang some chime inside me.
Yeah, so man, Dottie especially. Dottie was my original sponsor when I got sober, and so like the queen of helpful one-liners, and like that's very big in recovery. Is like the stuff that you hear in recovery are just these amazing like sayings that come through, like the wisdom of the room that come through these people who are willing to share them. Awesome, thank you, Dottie. Anybody else who's eldered or fathered or mothered you, and how are they with you? I'm going to encourage you. This is another thing I shared some wisdom from Jim Kane the other week and told you guys you should go to coffee with him because he's got stuff to share. You should ask Brandon because he has a tattoo and he's got a really, really cool story. So if you remember that, go and talk to him about it. It's worth it. Bill. Oh, hold on. Freddie's running the mic. Oh, yeah. So speaking to the mic, say your name and we'll say, hey, so we talk like a conversation instead of a lecture.
I'm Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Father Benedict Rochelle. He was a Franciscan priest up in New York. We met him in Norman Vincent Peale's church looking for a young adult community. And he's a Catholic priest in a Protestant basement teaching. And I go to leave and he taps me on the shoulder and says, Bill, if you ever want to talk, give me a call. Gives me his card and changed my whole life because we went to him for couples counseling or just direction because we thought we were crazy, and he affirmed our relationship.
Yeah.
And then he taught us spiritual direction. But for me, he put together psychology and spirituality.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I knew why I was put on this earth was to do what he does.
Wow.
In a different way. I wasn't going to be a priest, but he lived it, and he was brilliant, and he was funny as heck.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Anybody else? Who's invested in you? How are they still with you? How many of you guys had something to share that was similar to like an elder or a loved one who has like sayings that stay with you? We got a couple of those.
Yeah, he used to say, crazy people, you ran a Schlitz, because when you ran a Schlitz, you ran a beer.
You can go ask Bill about that one also. Go for it, Larry.
I just had my 75th birthday.
My
and,
goodness. Yeah. Keeping it tight.
You're right. Nobody thought I would live that long.
Every day is a celebration.
Oh, every day, yeah. Well, and people from my past came to the gathering, and there was a lady there who has been a guiding force and an encourager for 60 years, since I was like 15 years old. And I always said when I was asked to, say what shaped me, it would have been probably more than anyone else her, because as I would say, she believed in me, which made it possible for me to believe in myself and God.
Yeah.
And she's becoming senile, okay?
Yeah.
And it's sad in a way, but what she does in that growing senility is tell the same story over and over again about how I did something and she remembered it, and even at the table on the day of the gathering, it was, she probably said to me half a dozen times, "Do you remember when?"
Wow.
And yeah, I do. I get a little tired of hearing it sometimes, but it was, she was a shaping force and continued to be through most of my life and my tragedies as well.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Larry. That's so cool. Really, really appreciate that. All right. Awesome. Thanks, Fred. So the wisdom of the fathers and mothers, did I put my clicker down? Yeah. The wisdom of the fathers and mothers is that the healing of loneliness lies not in knowing, but in being known. Like everything else in capitalism, our deep desire is that our fear of aloneness and loneliness is something that we can accumulate our way through. That if we can know, if we get the secret knowledge or the secret answer or the secret potion or the secret pill or the secret wand or whatever, then we'll have the answer. But it's not in what we know or what we can get. It's in being known. It's in opening your heart. It's in being truly seen, accepted, vulnerable, whatever language you want to use. Tricky Dicky Rohr says the essential religious experience is that you are being known through more than knowing anything in particular, yourself. I don't think that's a sentence. I'm not sure what the parts of speech are that are happening in that quote, and I don't understand what it means. But I think, and that's because it's Richard Rohr who's like Yoda, I think what he's meaning to name is that true knowing has to be, and we're not talking about factual knowing, but true knowing has to be a two-way street. An I, thou. Between us and the divine, us and the true self, us and our higher power, the universe, God, whatever may be the best synonym for love, which is to know and accept yourself first, the best synonym for love. What if as you're coming to know love, love is also coming to better know you? What if you think about love as a force? And it's not just that you're learning about love, right? You've passed K through 12 love education, but that as you're learning about love, as you're knowing love experientially, love is also coming to know you through your experience of love. That love is finding a home in you. Or we would say love is becoming native to you. Through your practice, this becomes like muscle memory. The mystics say the way to overcome the fear of being alone is to become friends with yourself, to find friendship with yourself. And you know, back to the Jesus, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's not because they think like, because God's gone, and when God's all the way gone, then, you know, the only one you can really count on is yourself. That's like this rugged American individualism. Instead, what they mean is the path to healing our fear of loneliness, our fear of aloneness, it is not through God, but it's actually to God through us. The mystics say when you become the only one left, when you come to find true friendship with yourself, what you learn is that there is God and a universe of your true self that is to be known in that. The modern mystic Joseph Campbell says all the gods, all the heavens, all the hells are within you. This is what the mystics know, that if you can turn inside, if you can actually come to know and befriend your true self, you can't not know God. You can't not know love. You can befriend yourself in such a way that you'll never be alone. Not because of the God product, but because you've done the work of befriending yourself. And whether or not you agree that this is the path, we can agree that what has to happen with our loneliness is an exchange. We have to give up one way of thinking or one story for another. So just consider these stories in the face of the way we usually feel about aloneness and knowing. Knowing isn't as valuable or life-giving as being known. Knowing isn't as valuable or life-giving as being known. And so consider that, and maybe let's just ask this question. Reflect on this week. Do you believe that? Let's say it this way. If you believed that, what would change? Knowing isn't as valuable or life-giving as being known. If you believed that, what would change? Maybe about how you spend your time or your attention. What about this story? Being known is not something to be achieved, but experienced. Being known is not something to be achieved, but experienced. And so the way that we understand faith is to live as if. So let's say that's a story we're willing to tell ourselves, and we're willing to try to live as if that's true. That you can't achieve someone knowing you. You have to open yourself to that experience. And being known, because we can't, like we said, because we can't always guarantee there's another person there to know us, being known can be experienced now through this practice we've already done, accessible to everyone, no matter your tradition or religion or belief. Lots of practices help lead us to the door of what's traditionally called prayer, right? And we hold that very generously here. Meditating, sitting still, being in nature, amid art, preparing and eating a meal slowly, asking what is elevating or elating, and opening yourself to it just because it's good and it brings you joy. For me, I learned to pray sitting on a surfboard in the ocean. And so for me, the way I'm formed is prayer to me feels like waiting. And it feels like floating. And it feels like watching. I'm looking at the horizon. And I'm simultaneously not expecting anything because I don't know what to expect. I can't imagine waves to come. I just have to wait. So I'm not expecting anything, and I'm so expectant. I'm just ready. Being calm, being totally still. A seamlessness between my breath and the breeze and the water. I wonder if there's a practice for you that unfolds love to you, that you could rename or reimagine as prayer, because it's the thing that gives you life and it makes you feel connected to something or someone. It makes you feel not alone. And what if we let ourselves imagine that prayer is not a chore, or prayer is not a capitalist transaction to appease a God, but that prayer is a path to not being alone? That prayer is, in a sense, meant to remember us, to put us back together, to make us members again of an experience of not being alone. It makes us members again of a cloud, of a oneness, which is to say, a not aloneness. The mystics seem to be saying what will heal your loneliness is the journey towards becoming your own best friend. And again, it seems counterintuitive to say that the way to heal your loneliness is to spend more time alone with yourself. I get that. But also tons of healing comes from doing the opposite of what seems obvious because it's what your body is telling you to do, or what a healer in your life is telling you to do, right? If you're going to heal that injury, you got to use it. You got to work it. You got to move it. The mystics say that you should practice 2 hours of meditation every day, unless you don't have time, and then you should try 4. So the answer to 2 questions: how can you be of service to your own loneliness this week? And then how can we? What we're trying to do is transcend consciousness, right? As we've been talking about for the last couple years, beyond myself, beyond my tribe. So how can I be of service to my own loneliness first, right? Because I've got to get healthy. I've got to be my own best friend. I've got to be love in order to give love. So how do I become my own best friend? How do I become of service to my own loneliness? And then beyond ourselves, how can we be of service to the loneliness of others? And the answer is the same. You become your own best friend. And you become the kind of person to whom others flock. That sense of knowing who you are is captivating. Your boundaries will become healthier, right? You won't become open to all these people who will suck you dry because you'll know who you are. Your boundaries will become so clear and healthy. Your sense of need will transform. And the hope is that you look in the mirror, but you also actually begin to come to see yourself. Because people who are their own best friend, people who love themselves, are not just totally wonderful to be around. And they are. You guys know they are. You're attracted to them the same way that I am. They also tend not to start wars, right? People that love themselves, that are their own best friend, they don't start wars. They don't wake up in the morning wondering how they can harm or take advantage of people. The people who love themselves, the ones that can cultivate a relationship with their true self, can live from that place. And one of the most simple and powerful practices that we know for befriending ourselves, especially befriending ourselves in the face of loneliness, is meditation. Is an invitation to sit alone. As we've said, we've got such a generosity of language. through which you can use that. We've got so many different kinds of practices connected to silence, to meditation, to prayer, just in this room, but in this congregation, and then beyond the congregation, we've got a Buddhist meeting that's going to start meeting here. We've got a great Quaker meeting that gathers here on Sunday morning. Many of you, I think, are in the practice of sitting silently on your own. Some of us do that together as well. So this meditation, whatever that means for you, and it's not to win it, not to get all the way, but to do something practical and sustainable to begin to come to terms with being alone. Take the next step, whatever that is for you this week. It seems that being alone is a capacity, and that capacity, at least in developmental psychology, comes about in relationship to a caregiver. And so the mother, the parent, the sense of security in that as the child develops, they move further from the mother. The mother moves more into the background, and the child develops this sense that they have an ego out beyond the mother, that they're safe further and further from the mother, but the sense that the mother's with them. And we were talking at Work of the People about the fact that maybe the community, the body of Christ, the human community, can sort of heal and complete this childhood trauma for us. That maybe a community in our adulthood can come to offer such belonging and security that even as we grow further, even as we wander farther from our tribe, we still know that we are of that oneness. We know that we are of that cloud of witnesses. Jesus says, anywhere 2 or 3 of you are gathered, I am there with you. That we're not alone because of the community of which we're a part. So maybe one more way we could change our fear of aloneness and ground ourselves in deeper belonging is to belong to a community on purpose so that we can borrow that confidence when we're alone. Like a child who's trying to grow up and earn some confidence to move further and further from the mother, maybe being in a healthy community allows us to not need that community, but to come to be able to enjoy it as we grow up in the community together. Maybe we borrow that confidence from the community as we move in the world so that we don't have to be alone and feel alone. So Advent tells us celebrate because God is with us. The fear of being alone says you better not because there's nobody with you. And the mystics say, yeah, but you are with you. But you are with you. And so God is with you. We just have to learn this Advent season to become our friend again. That's the starting point. And I want to start by saying I hope I will. I know I am. I know I'm on that path. I know I am more now than I ever have been. And I know it's a path. And so I hope I will. And I want to say that first so that I can say, I hope you will. I hope you will. I hope you'll take this Advent season and ask what it means for you to become your best friend, to find that first within you and then to incarnate that, to manifest that in this month as we sort of set up for the feast of Christmas, of God being with us. Find out what it means for you to be with yourself a little bit. To be in the cosmic Christ, to be in the universal oneness, to be of Christ, to participate in that body, to follow the way of Jesus, the message of Jesus, the sort of nuclear core at the heart of our tradition, and the mystical path of the saints and the sages and the gurus is this. It's this deep and sacred impulse to come to a table and remember that God is with us because of the people that come to the table. That God is with us in the people in this room. And that can be with us, even when we're not with the people in this room. In a moment, we're going to come to this table and receive the Eucharist, the gift of love and God with us. The table of this unconditional belonging and transformative love is set. It's open for us tonight and for all people. We, as the body of Christ, to be given first to one another and then to the world. We, as the blood of Christ, to be shed. This table is set for us and all people, and as always, no one will ever be turned away. When you're ready, come on up. We're going to begin to shift into another round of COVID safety. So if you are feeling good, vaccinated, willing to be safe on behalf of everyone else, feel free to grab a piece of bread. You can dip it in the cup. We're going to ask you to do it very mindfully. You shouldn't have to touch any more than one piece of bread. You shouldn't need to put your fingers in the cup. If you don't want to do that with a cup, you can grab a piece of bread and take some juice and dip it there on your own. The idea is we want everybody to be safe and comfortable and start to sort of open for those who are vaccinated and feel comfortable. But if you're not there yet or you're not sure you're safe, please practice safely on behalf of everybody else that's here. When you're ready, come and join us as we share this meal and these words.
That I've known, and in all of my woes, the cause to lay you low, I demand they turn to hope. Just set me free. You just set me free. As it takes its toll, and it won't let you go. Reminded of the cold, how it's taken so much of me. Are you worried about being safe? All your fears and insecurity. Just set me free. Just set me free. Just set me free.
Thank you so much for joining us both in person and online. And thank you again for making financial support a part of your practice by visiting collectivegives.com. You can make your plan to stay connected with us by visiting wearecollectivechurch.com. Update your preferences to customize your engagement. And if you're willing to share what you found and make it easier for others to do so, you can give us a review on Facebook or Google. For benediction this evening, we've got a poem from Mary Oliver called How I Go to the Woods. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I'm alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune as motionless as an uprise of weeds until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unhearable sound of the roses singing. If you have ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much.
Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. First to our forehead for clarity of thought, then to our lips for clarity of speech, and to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and do this week, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. If you would, I believe we're leaving the room here for the chamber event tomorrow morning, but we could use some help getting the furniture moved in from outside. That would be awesome. And then again, if you can be here Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. if you want to learn how to disassemble the stage to help us out, that would be fantastic. Anything else for the cause? Grace and peace. Love you guys. Have a great week.